conspiracy theories, tomorrow's headlines. Most are still asleep and I ain't talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called media N9. I'm not a media theorist, I'm not a thread line. Smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red line. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end time. It feels like the end time. Smash the red line, but the carnal mind is foolish, obey. Carnal mind foolish, obey. Use their instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, and make a load of earnest future. The truth you pursue is this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything, everything about nothing. Know a bit about everything and everything about shit about watching till I dish it out. Stop it, I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's sound cocky, sound cocky, I'm out on it. Stop it, it's sound on it, never been about on it. Ever get out, sound on it, your house. I'm out of the out, the count when the sound comes out. Out, no count down, I mean how long to be out, no out. Been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind held me now. Still sick with the mind held me now. You are down in the world held out. I don't reach out, I don't speak out. I don't recount the reasons to be out. I don't recount the reasons to be out.
Before modern medicine, before electricity, before even the idea of science as we know it, ancient civilizations already understood something crucial, that we are more than matter, that a subtle energy flows through all things, seen and unseen. The Indians called it prana, the Chinese called it chi, the Egyptians knew it as ka, and the Greeks called it ether, the divine breath of life. They didn't just believe in this energy, they worked with it. They learned to cultivate it, direct it, and protect it. And their entire spiritual traditions were built around this force, not as theory, but as a lived reality. In this video, we'll dive deep into how these ancient cultures understood and controlled the life force. You'll discover forgotten wisdom, powerful techniques, and how to bring this sacred knowledge back into your life today. Modern science teaches us that we are physical beings, machines made of flesh, blood, and neurons. But the ancients, they saw something else. They believed, no, they knew, that life is more than just chemistry. That beneath the body, beyond the organs, and deeper than the breath, there is an invisible force keeping everything alive. The ancient Indians called it prana, the subtle life force that rides the breath and fuels consciousness. For them, it flowed through nadis, energy channels that move throughout the body, like energetic rivers. And where these rivers converged, those became the chakras, energy centers that mirrored the cosmos. In ancient China, this same force was known as qi, or qi, not just a spiritual concept, but the very essence of health, vitality, and flow. The Chinese knew that when qi was blocked, the body would suffer. They mapped out meridians across the body and used acupuncture, herbs, movement, and breath to bring balance back. The Egyptians called it ka, the energy double of the physical body. They believed that when you died, your ka would live on, separate from your flesh. The ka was sacred. It needed food, rest, and rituals to stay strong. Entire temples were constructed to support the ka in the afterlife. And in Greece, it was ether, the divine substance that filled the space between things. Aristotle believed ether was the fifth element beyond earth, water, air, and fire. It was the spiritual glue of the universe, the breath of the gods. What's remarkable is this. These civilizations were oceans apart, separated by thousands of years. And yet they all described the same thing, a living, flowing, intelligent energy, an energy that gives rise to thought, to intuition, to healing, and perhaps even to the soul itself. Today we rarely talk about this energy, but it's still here, flowing through you. reacting to your thoughts, your breath, your emotions. It changes when you enter a room, when you talk to someone, when you remember something. You feel it when you're near someone you love, or someone who drains you. This is not imagination, it's energy, and it's real. The question is, how did the ancients learn to control it? How did they harness this subtle force? And what tools did they leave behind for us to rediscover? That's what we'll explore next. It's one thing to believe in energy, but the ancients went far beyond belief. They developed practices, systems, even sciences, to work with the life force. Not metaphorically, literally. In India, the science of prana in ancient India, the rishis, seers of the Vedic tradition, understood that prana moved with the breath. But it wasn't just about inhaling and exhaling. They discovered that by controlling the breath, you could regulate the mind, body, and spirit. This gave birth to pranayama, the yogic science of breath control. With specific breathing patterns, they could activate different energy centers, the chakras, purify the nadis, and even enter altered states of consciousness. The goal wasn't just relaxation, it was union with the divine, to raise prana through the spine and awaken the sleeping serpent, kundalini. Alongside breath, they used mudras, hand positions, that seal and redirect energy, and mantras, vibrational sounds like OM, that tune the body's frequency to cosmic resonance. In China, the flow of qi thousands of miles away, in ancient China, Taoist masters were doing something incredibly similar. They studied qi as the foundational force of life. Their focus was on harmony, balancing yin and yang to keep qi flowing. They practiced qigong and tai chi, slow, intentional movements, combined with breath and intention. These weren't just exercises. They were moving meditations that cultivated internal power. Chinese medicine emerged from this understanding, using acupuncture to open blocked meridians, herbs to tonify or disperse energy, and even breath-focused martial arts to store qi in the body's core, the dantian. According to them, illness wasn't just physical, it was energetic stagnation. So healing meant moving the energy again. In Egypt, the Ka and the temples, the ancient Egyptians went even deeper into the mystery of energy and the afterlife. They believed each person had a Ka, an energetic twin that lived alongside the physical body. While the body could die, the Ka would continue. That's why they preserved bodies so carefully, not just out of reverence, but because the Ka needed a home. They built entire temples as energy devices, carefully aligned with stars and geometric precision. These were not random. The architecture channeled spiritual energy. And in the inner sanctums of these temples, high priests practiced rituals of energy transformation, using incense, color, vibration, and sacred geometry to raise their Ka to higher dimensions. In Greece and the Hermetic world, the ether and the mind, the Greeks. Especially the Hermetic philosophers saw ether as the divine breath that permeates all things. To them, reality was energy in motion, just vibrating at different frequencies. They developed systems of mental and spiritual mastery through the Hermetic principles. Everything is vibration. As above, so below. The all is mind. They practiced meditative stillness to tune their inner frequency with the divine. The mystery schools of Alexandria taught that by mastering your thoughts, your breath, your inner fire, you could become a living channel of divine ether. These weren't just isolated practices. They were systems of energy mastery passed down through initiates, protected from the outer world, and now, mostly forgotten. But the deeper truth: these techniques still work, Because the energy hasn't changed. Only we have forgotten how to feel it. When you think of tools, you might picture machines, wires, or technology. But to the ancients, their tools weren't mechanical. They were spiritual technologies. Everything they used had one purpose: to help the human being align with the invisible force that flows through all life. Sound and vibration. Sound was one of the most powerful tools, because sound is vibration, and vibration is energy in motion. The Vedic sages used mantras like Om, Soham, or Gayatri to tune the body's frequency. The Egyptians chanted sacred tones in chambers designed to amplify resonance. And even today, monks in Tibet use singing bowls, gongs, and deep throat chants to cleanse energy fields and induce altered states of consciousness. Why? Because every cell in your body responds to frequency, and when you tune it right, energy flows. Sacred geometry. In temples, manuscripts, and architecture, one thing appears again and again: geometry. Circles, triangles, the flower of life, the Sri Yantra, the Ankh, the Eye of Horus. These were not just art, they were maps of energy. Sacred geometry was used to create resonant spaces like pyramids and mandalas, activate focus in meditation, attract cosmic forces during ritual work. The belief was simple: geometry holds a vibrational key. When your mind locks into it, energy opens. Crystals and natural elements. The ancients also worked with crystals, stones, and metals, not for beauty, but for energy. They believed each material held a specific vibration: clear quartz to amplify energy, lapis lazuli for insight, and connection obsidian for protection and grounding. Gold as a divine conductor. Egyptian priests placed crystals over chakras during ceremonies. In India, malas, prayer beads made of rudraksha or sandalwood, were used to carry frequency. Even the Chinese five-element theory incorporates wood, metal, fire, earth, and water, all energetically alive. Ritual and intention. But the greatest tool of all wasn't physical, it was intention. Every practice, from lighting incense to drawing symbols to placing stones, only worked if the practitioner was fully present and aligned. The act of ritual, slow, symbolic, meaningful, was used to focus the mind, direct the energy, invite spiritual forces to assist. Whether through Hermetic magic, Taoist ceremony, or Vedic fire rituals, intention was the ignition key. Because energy follows awareness. And when awareness is clear, energy obeys. These tools weren't magic tricks. They were sacred instruments of alignment, passed down through generations. And even now, they wait quietly for the seeker who's ready to remember. Imagine waking up in the morning, and instead of feeling drained, scattered, or foggy, you feel centered, alive, charged from the inside out. That's what starts to happen when you begin working with your energy intentionally. You're no longer just reacting to life, but you're shaping it. When you reclaim your energy, you stop leaking it into places it doesn't belong, into past regrets, old wounds, toxic people, or roles you no longer need to play. You begin to pull your power back. You stop absorbing energy that isn't yours and start radiating your own. Your thoughts get clearer. Your emotions become messages, not prisons. And your intuition, that quiet inner voice, gets louder and more accurate. Life doesn't stop being challenging, but your relationship with it transforms. You're no longer a leaf in the wind. You become the wind. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to remember that what the ancients knew has always lived inside you. You don't need to become a monk, or live in a temple, or master ancient languages to reclaim this wisdom. All you need is to become aware, aware of your breath, aware of the spaces you enter, aware of how your body responds when something feels right or wrong, because your energy is always speaking to you. But in the noise of the modern world, we forgot how to listen. When you begin to listen again, truly listen, you'll notice subtle shifts, a feeling in your chest, a pull in your gut, a sense of lightness when you're aligned, and heaviness when you're not. That's not random. That's your life force giving you feedback. And this is how the ancients lived, in constant dialogue with their energy. They tuned their instruments daily, breath, body, heart, and soul. They didn't control energy by force. They guided it with presence. And this is available to you now, not through belief, but through experience. The energy has always been there. The only question is, will you learn to feel it again? The ancients didn't separate energy from life. They saw it in every breath, every element, every sacred act. And maybe that's what we're being called to remember now, not just to protect our energy, but to live through it. So if this awakens something in you, don't stop here. There's more to remember, more to uncover, more to reclaim. Explore the next video on this channel, wherever you feel called to go. Whether it's about protection, transformation, or deeper truths, follow your energy, because once you begin to feel it, the journey never really ends.
And that was an amazing video by Mystic Atlas. You can follow him over on YouTube. I found that documentary very enlightening. It goes and covers a wide variety of aspects on mystical energy, or energy that is true to us, but seemingly missing from all of our history books, all of our school books, for a reason. The reason is vitality and being able to be in control of yourself, um, being strong. You see, now these days, it seems like people are having disturbed spirits, because they're what they're being told is that everything around them isn't what they can sense and what they can see, right? So people are like kind of confused. What the scholastic system and what the education system is teaching isn't what we are truly experiencing here on Earth. And we know it, we can feel it, we sense this ether, the electricity around us, we sense the intuition, we sense the telepathy, we sense, like, sometimes you can read your friend's mind or something. If you feel like you have deja vu and you can see dreams out months and months and months ahead and have visions. But our school books don't talk about these things. And so when people have all sorts of different experiences and are able to understand the different types of energy out here, it seems like there's a missing link, and the missing link is knowledge. So, like, having the ability in the body but not having the knowledge in the mind is very detrimental to being able to control a population. With these elites, they would love for us to be completely clueless. You know, that's just the way it is for these guys. They're horrible, and that's why I try to teach as much as I can, or try to show as much as I can, and learn with you and learn with everybody. Seems like every day there's more. There's definitely more to what we got going on. Like, just uncovering revelations, all sorts of things. Um, 1 second, I just dropped something. Speaking of ancient energy, check this out. This is what I use in my own little daily life. The tuning fork, 528 hertz tuning fork. So it provides a harmonious sound, and it calms me down, but also helps me focus in. And in those fancy, like body healing massage spas type of, people who work with, I guess, Eastern type of traditional healing practices would use these type of things to heal the body. And the bells from ancient world, like the Liberty Bell, these bells were known to vibrate at a very harmonious nature too, and provide healing for us. We're gonna get into these news. Yes, there's gonna be some cool stuff. Brainless human clones, new discoveries in Mahajanjaro and the Middle East. A gold miner rescued, having strong faith, and the Forest Service is gone. I can't believe that. You can't believe that. Nobody can believe it. Truly, we're still gonna be out in the forest though, but ain't nobody gonna be servicing us, right? I think that's how it goes. Just playing with y'all. Hey, like, subscribe, and share. Tell everybody around that this is going down. Please help me get out far and wide and get this podcast growing. Let's do this thing. So, where are we at right here? So Mahajan. Yes, one of the earliest major cities in the Indus Valley is even older than we thought. Here, let me 1 second. Seems like my keyboard is having an issue. Perfect. All right. This is out in Iran. I believe so. One of the earliest major cities in the Indus Valley is even older than thought. The ancient city, it turns out, was already taking shape before the Egyptians raised the Great Pyramids of Giza. One of the greatest urban centers of the ancient world appeared to be even older than thought. New radiocarbon dating at the site's city walls suggests it was occupied as early as 2700 and 2600 BCE, centuries earlier than previous estimates. The ruins of Mohenjo-daro, meaning Mound of the Dead Men, are found along the banks of the Indus River, whose fertile floodplains gave rise to some of the world's first urban civilizations and great Bronze Age societies. Today, the site lies within Sindh, a province in southwestern Pakistan, and is widely considered the largest and best preserved of the lot. Oh, not Iran. It's in Pakistan. Sorry. At its peak, at least 40,000 people called the city home, living among burnt brick structures spread across 240 hectares, only about a third of which have been excavated since the work began in 1922. However, it isn't just the size that makes Mohenjo-daro significant. The city was remarkably sophisticated, with evidence of advanced art, religion, and civic administration. Perhaps most striking was its water infrastructure, complete with elaborate baths, wells, and specialized sewage pits that rivaled anything else in the ancient world. This was much more than a village that had simply grown beyond control. It was a highly organized urban structure center that demanded a complex culture and a degree of centralized authority to build and sustain. Until recently, scholars generally held that Mohenjo-daro emerged around 2500 BCE, although parts of the city's early history had previously been murky. Now, a recent geoarchaeological survey by the Sindh Directorate General of Antiquities and Archaeology has helped me to fill in its first known chapter. The work provides new radiocarbon dates for its massive mud brick walls that surrounds the western stupa mound, an elaborate structure in the citadel part of the upper city. This revealed that the city was constructed a couple of centuries before the accepted data. The ancient metropolis, it turns out, was already taking place before the Egyptians started the Great Pyramids in Giza around 2600 BCE. Pottery and carbon samples from the lowest levels of the first wall indicate that this initial structure was constructed at the end of the early Harappan and Khatiji phase around 2700 to 2600 BCE, approximately 100 years before the beginning of the Harappan phase. The excavations also shed light on some later stages of the city's evolution. The walls were expanded and maintained around until 2200 BC and possibly even longer. Future investigations will trace the plan of the city around the Stupa Mound in order to figure out and locate gateways and determine how well functioned. Well, all right. So let's see if we can see it for 1 second.
The ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro is one of the first urban centers in
I'm
human
guessing at
history.
time it might have more color.
Nestled in southern Pakistan's Indus River Valley, Mohenjo-Daro is the largest and best preserved city of the Indus civilization,
Yeah, the
earliest known civilization of the Indian subcontinent.
where a sphinx should be.
Mohenjo-Daro was built around
Sphinx out here. There's other
2500
pyramids
BC,
and
about the
some of these
same
other
time the
Middle
Great
Eastern
Pyramids were
places.
being built in Egypt.
The origins of the ancient metropolis are coming to a sharper focus. Its demise remains as mysterious as ever. Mohenjo-Daro flourished until it was left ruined between 1800 and 1700 BC, but the cause of its abandonment is unknown. Man. A lot of these great civilizations have mysteriously gone unknown. I wonder what's going on, man. Wonder what's going on. It's oof. Here's next. So next up we have this Greece shipwreck off Carpathos. The Greek Ministry of Culture announced a series of underwater discoveries in the seas surrounding Carpathos in the southeast Aegean on Tuesday. Well, this was conducted in October 2025. This systematic mission is part of the ongoing strategic program launched in 2019 to map the submerged cultural heritage of the Aegean. During the first systematic underway survey of the island, an international team of researchers dove into the waters of Vikrios and Nisrios. These sites represent two of the four ancient cities that once formed the famed Carpathos Tetropolis, as documented in Strabo, or as documented by Strabo in Geographica. With over 120 dives reaching depths of up to 45 meters around northern Carpathos and the isolate of Sadia, the team documented cultural remains spanning more than 2,600 years. The findings stretch from the Archaic period to the mid 19th century AD. Key discoveries, which highlighted the area's strategic importance during late antiquity when combined with nearly ecclesiastical and residential ruins, include 5 shipwrecks, 4 ancient vessels, and one of the modern area. Ancient port infrastructure, submerged ruins that redefine our understanding of regional trade, maritime cargo, a vast array of commercial transport jars, Byzantine anchors, over 20 anchors identified near Tristissimo. A whole bunch of discoveries are waiting to be found out there. It's not just uh like one or two. There's discoveries happening everywhere. And it's kind of an amazing time, especially with the internet. It seems like there's a whole bunch of opportunity to become a prolific writer or prolific researcher if you can find just I guess the right direction. If you can put yourself in the right direction with you know history or mythology or whatever it may be, it will really, really shine some light when you find some things. Like right here 30 previously unpublished verses by Empedocles discovered on a papyrus from Cairo. A 2,000-year-old papyrus fragment discovered in the archives of the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology in Cairo reveals 30 previously unpublished verses by Empedocles, a pre-Socratic philosopher in the 5th century BCE. This discovery offers researchers and direct access to a body of thought previously only known through quotations from later authors. The very first edition, translation, and commentary on these verses are published in the book Le Empédocle du Cadi, edited by Nathan Carlig, Alan Martin, and Olivier Primaversi. It was at the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology in Cairo that Nathan Carlig, a papyrologist at the University of Liège, identified papyrus P. followed INV 218 as an unknown fragment of the Physica, the great poem of the philosopher Empedocles of Agrigentum. Until now, our knowledge of Empedocles' work relied exclusively on indirect sources such as fragmentary quotations, summaries, or allusions scattered throughout the works of authors such as Plato, Aristotle, or Plutarch. Papyrus 218 allows us to read the philosopher in his original text without the intermediary of an often partial or biased source. It would also is the only known copy of the Physica. Fragments of other parts of the same scroll are preserved in Strasbourg. The text has come to light is dealing with the theory of particle effluvia and sensory perceptions, particularly vision. Analysis of the text has revealed unexpected connections, including the probable direct source of the passage of Plutarch, 2nd century, as well as the dialogue of Plato and a text by Theophrastus, a disciple of Aristotle, both from the 4th century BCE. Unnoticed echoes of Empedocles have also been detected in the comic poet of Aristophanes and the Latin philosopher Lucretius. The study further suggests that Empedocles could be regarded as a precursor of the Atomist philosophers, foremost among whom is Democritus of Abdera. To grasp such a to grasp the significance of such a discovery, the authors offer an illuminating analogy. Analogy, holy shit. Imagine that in a few centuries' time, all that remains of Victor Hugo are excerpts from Les Miserables in school textbooks, the musical Notre Dame de Paris, and the program for a performance of the play Hernani. The discovery of a few pages from the original edition of Hugo's work would then be a momentous event. This is precisely what specialists in Empedocles are experiencing today. Like the humanists in the Renaissance who scoured European libraries to unearth lost manuscripts, papyrologists have, since the late 19th century, pursued a similar quest to papyrus texts. It is, in a way, to borrow Peter Parsons' word, a second renaissance of ancient literature, says Nathan Carlig. The publication of this research opens a new perspective on the understandings of Empedocles' doctrine and more broadly his work, and in order to better situate the philosopher within the history of Greek philosophy and to better define his relationship with his predecessors and successors. Interesting. So, I would. This is the first time anyone in history is going to be able to read from the philosopher Empedocles. There's never been anything ever found by him from 2,000 years ago, but it's now been found, and that's pretty amazing. I think that is amazing. There's that's what we want to see. That's like that, that's why we shouldn't just give up on history, I guess, in a sense, when we like go through caves or go through any ancient sites. Like we gotta be alert, look. And I guess for the people who know where to dig, they I guess being ignorant and not caring about finding, history probably would have made it so that we would have never known about half of our discoveries, right? When these archaeologists went to go discover Giza and the pyramids of Giza and all these different the Sphinx and everything, guess what? If he didn't go, no one would ever have gone ever. Still now to this day, it probably wouldn't have been found, right? Hypothetically, let's just say that. So it's cool that we're seeing constant new discoveries.
I love it when things come out about the Giza Plateau. Professor Filippo Bionde, a satellite radar specialist with a background in radar with the Italian government, sat down with Matt Beale and stated that he had found a second great sphinx on Giza from deeper underground sections. Both show shafts that are descending down to depth, horizontal assisting out. So what I was told quietly in Malta when I was with Filippo Bionde and the rest of the Khafra Pyramid team has now been disclosed on Matt Beale's Limitless podcast, which I was also on recently. Links for that are in the description box. But this time it was my friend Professor Filippo Bionde on the podcast, and he sent into a frenzy over recent scans pointing towards what could be a second sphinx on the Giza Plateau. Professor Filippo Bionde in government sat down with Matt Beale, stated that he had found a second great sphinx on Giza buried beneath a 180-foot mound of compacted sand of Khafre was, in his exact words, 100%. But here's what makes the story genuinely extraordinary. The idea of a second sphinx is not new, and it did not originate in 2026. It goes back 4,500 years. It was woven into the oldest strata of Egyptian theology. It's mentioned in medieval Islamic scholarship. It was discussed by Greek and Roman travelers. It's been pursued by independent Egyptologists for decades, and in 20 satellite data, a geometric coordinate to a specific location. Hit that subscribe button. Please just whack that subscribe button with your finger right now. That's the best way to support me. Drop a comment below in the comment section, like the video, share the video online. But above all else, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you tickle that notification bell as well. Otherwise, YouTube doesn't send you the videos. Ancient Egyptian cosmology encoded the twin sphinx into its understanding of the universe. Aker was one of the most ancient gods in the entire Egyptian pantheon. First depicted in the reign of Pharaoh Dier, fourth king of the first dynasty, placing him at the very dawn of dynastic Egyptian civilization around 3000 BC. He was the god of the horizon, the earth, and the threshold of the underworld, Ra, through the Duat. His iconography is the key to everything. Aker was depicted not as a single creature, but as two recumbent lion torsos merged together, sitting back to back, each facing an opposite horizon. By the Middle Kingdom, he was firmly established as a pair of twin lions, one named Duaj, tomorrow, and the other Sefe, yesterday. The two lions sat back to back with a sun disk, or the hieroglyph for horizon, placed between them. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo, this aligns with the belief of individuals like Graham Hancock that the Sphinx was originally a lion orientated towards the constellation of Leo, modified by later cultures into a sphinx. If true, the sphinx, or more accurately lion, would go back to roughly 10,500 BC, hiding underneath that mound. And imagine if it was discovered in lion form. That would be extremely provocative evidence for the Sphinx being altered by ancient Egyptian cultures, but the twin lions likely existed long before dynastic Egypt. In later dynastic representations, Akir evolved further. The twin lion forms were increasingly depicted faces due east, it watches the rising sun. In Egyptian cosmology, this makes it one half of the Akka pair, the western-facing twin, the guardian of yesterday, of sunsets, of the entrance to the underworld, would logically sit behind it, facing west, facing the desert, facing the opposite direction. Positioned between the front paws of the Great Sphinx since approximately 1401 BC, the dream stele, attributed to Pharaoh Thutmose IV, is a 15-ton slab of pink granite, 360 centimeters tall, 218 centimeters wide. The story it tells is famous. A young prince falls asleep near the Sphinx, dreams it speaks to him as the god Hormaket, promises him the throne of Egypt if he will clear the sand burying its body, and Thutmose awakens to fulfill the bargain and become pharaoh. But look at the upper register of the stele, the carved scene above the text. It's divided into two panels, left and right. In both panels, Pharaoh Thutmose IV is shown making offerings, and in both panels, he's making those offerings to the Sphinx, which appears twice on two separate pedestals, one on each side. The text specifies in both cases that the figure on the pedestal is Harmakis, the name of the Sphinx as a deity. One scholar's close translation of the stele arch reads, "The arch of the stele has the representation of two leaning sphinxes lying on plinths. In both cases, the text specifies that it is Harmakis." Now, mainstream Egyptology's position is that this is standard New Kingdom artistic convention, with the deity appearing symmetrically on each side as a compositional device. But the secondary reading that the dual sphinx imagery is literally depicting two sphinxes, as Ecker's theology requires, has never actually been conclusively disproved, or even the old boys club of mainstream archaeology, up to groups like the Khafra Pyramid Project, to begin shedding light on the possibilities. It's important to note that the dream stele is incomplete. A large crack running through the stone has destroyed approximately half of the original text, beginning at the 12th line and running to the bottom. So whatever the full inscription contained, whatever additional description of the Sphinx's sacred landscape Thutmose IV commissioned, is gone, lost, and possibly forever. But one of the most tangible pieces of evidence for the second Sphinx, radar or mythology, it's just simply visible from above. Satellite imagery of the Giza Plateau clearly shows a raised mound of compacted sand and debris to the northwest of the existing Sphinx, in the vicinity where Bionde's geometric calculations place the second structure. Filippo Bionde describes this mound as not natural bedrock. We're very sure, he says, that this is not bedrock. The sand has solidified. So if this observation about the sand's composition is correct, it would suggest deliberate compaction, the kind that might be expected from intentional burial. The critical point that no one has excavated this mound with the specific hypothesis of a second Sphinx in mind. So Zahi Hawas's claim that the relevant area for the Sphinx has been dug by so many archaeologists and it's yielded nothing, that refers to the theory of a second Sphinx on the opposite bank of the Nile, or to an earlier proposed location, but not to the specific geometric position that Bionde's 2026 analysis is targeting. The most sustained pre-Bionde case for a second Giza Sphinx belongs to Egyptian Egyptologist Bassam el-Shamar, who spent more than 10 years compiling textual, archaeological, and satellite evidence for his hypothesis. El-Shamar's argument rests on several interlocking claims. Egyptian sphinxes in all documented cases come in pairs. Avenues, temple entrances, processional routes all feature paired sphinxes. The Great Sphinx, being singular, is in of itself an anomaly with no parallels in Egyptian architectural practice. Ancient Egyptian texts, Middle Kingdom papyrus, and later Greek and Roman accounts have also referenced a second sphinx at or near Giza. Then you have NASA satellite imagery that was reviewed by El-Shamar, which shows an anomalous formation near the known sphinx consistent with a buried large-scale limestone structure. El-Shamar also takes great consideration into the theological framework of Akir, the twin lion deity, which demands a western-facing counterpart to the east-facing Great Sphinx. Filippo Biondi's methodology for locating the second sphinx didn't begin with radar, it just began with geometry. The known Great Sphinx sits at a specific position on the Giza Plateau relative to the Pyramid of Khafre. Biondi traced a line from the center of the Khafre Pyramid to the exact position of the Great Sphinx, and he then mirrored that line geometrically, reflecting it across the central axis of the Sphinx to locate its precise geometric counterpart on the opposite side. This mirroring produces a specific geographic coordinate, a point to the northwest of the existing Sphinx, which, when plotted on satellite imagery of the plateau, falls directly beneath the raised sand mound that has been visible to researchers and travelers for over 400 years. The position produced by the geometric projection matches the location of the anomalous mound. This alone doesn't prove a second sphinx exists. The question of whether something is actually there has to now be explored, but there is more to this than a simple matchup of geometry to a mound. Biondi's harmonic SAR satellite optography method, the same methodology used to claim subterranean structures beneath the pyramids of Giza, was subsequently applied to the sand mound. The SAR processing produced what he described as internal features within the mound, including vertical shafts of a type and orientation closely resembling those he previously detected beneath the existing Great Sphinx, horizontal passageways extending from deeper underground sections, dense linear features interpreted as the outer walls of an underground shaft rather than empty voids, and an overall structural arrangement that, in Biondi's words, shows incredible symmetry with the known structures beneath the first Sphinx. Both show shafts that are descending down to depth. They both show horizontal tunnel systems extending outward, and they both show the same geometric internal arrangement. He said that we found shafts within the original Sphinx and similar shafts within the presumed second Sphinx, and the similarities between the two sites are increasingly hard to overlook. Filippo has been explicit that this requires in-field verification. For the second Sphinx, it is crucial to conduct in-situ examinations with geologists and meticulously study the mound, but they have identified specific entrances where they can work in situ. This means that we have a prepared project proposal for the Egyptian authorities when it comes to presenting this idea and trying to justify any sort of actual excavations of this mound, which again just seems like it should have been done at some point, if not in the ancient time, in the modern era, but apparently it's just been sitting there dormant for all of this time, and only now are we beginning to go, oh, maybe we should dig that mound up on the Giza Plateau, you know, that gigantic mound of compacted sand. Either way, this is another exciting development on the Giza Plateau, and one that I think we all hope can be explored more rigorously alongside the scans and possibilities already out there in respects to the wider subterranean structure of the Giza Plateau. I think it's abundantly clear, even without the SAR Doppler scans, there's something profound and extremely large
All right. That was amazing. By Project Unity, Jay Anderson, doing brilliant research. Oh, why is my screen not big? There we go. We got my screen big. You can see me nice. Now we have a few more things. We have the brainless human clones. This is what we're about to get into right now. This is an MIT exclusive. Well, it was half the story was told a couple weeks prior, but these guys got down to the bottom of it with how serious this matter is. Inside the stealthy startup that pitched brainless human clones, after operating in secrecy for years, a startup company called R3 Bio in Richmond, California, suddenly shared details about its work last night, saying it had raised money to create a non sentient monkey organ sac as an alternative to animal testing. In an interview with Wired, R3 listed three investors: billionaire Tim Draper, the Singapore based fund Immortal Dragons, and life extension investors Long Game Ventures. But there is more to the story, and R3 doesn't want that story told. MIT Technology Review discovered that the stealth startup's founder, John Schlorden, also pitched a startling, medically graphic, and ethically charged vision for what he calls brainless clones to serve the role for backup human bodies. Imagine it like this: a baby version of yourself with only enough of a brain structure to be alive in case you ever need a new kidney or liver. Or alternatively, he has speculated you might one day get your brain placed into a younger clone. That could be a way to gain a second lifespan through a hypothetical procedure known as a body transplant. The fuller context of R3's proposal, as well as activities of another stealth startup with related goals, have not previously been reported. They've been kept secret by a circle of extreme life extension proponents who fear that their plans for immortality could be derailed by clickbait headlines and public backlash. And that's because the idea can sound like something straight out of a creepy science fiction film. One person who heard R3's clone presentation and spoke on the condition of anonymity was left reeling by its implications and shaken by Schlorender's enthusiastic delivery. The briefing, this person said, was like a close encounter of the third kind with Dr. Strangelove. A key inspiration for Schlorendern is a birth defect in which children are born missing most of their cortisol hemispheres. He's shown people medical scans of these kids nearly ha- empty schools as evidence that a body can live without much of a brain, and he's talked about how to grow a clone. Since artificial wombs don't exist yet, brainless bodies can't be grown in a lab. So he said the first batch of brainless clones would be have to be carried by women paid to do the job. In the future, though, one brainless clone could give birth to another. Oh my god. So he's gonna have women birth a brainless baby, an artificial brainless baby, and then repopulate that. What? And he's gonna pay them. No, don't ever take that money. Last Monday, the same day it announced itself to the world and Wired, R3 sent us a sweeping disavowal of our findings. It said Schlorender never made any statement regarding hypothetical non-sentient human clones would be carried by surrogates. The most overarching of these challenges was is instance uh, Whoa, the most overarching of these challenges was its insistence that any allegations of intent or conspiracy to create human clones or humans with brain damage are categorically false. Whoa. So I'm tripping out. This is MIT. Like, I'm thinking about how big this is. MIT is coming out here and going against these billionaires. These billionaires are saying, well, no, that's not what we said. And MIT is going against the MIT is billionaire too, but they're college, they're a technology company, technology university. So they're actually sticking to the truth. And especially after what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years with this whole Epstein thing and how the elites want to trick their science, their stupid little agendas into science. And it came out that they were trying to like blackmail technology and scientists and everything, and like, yeah, no one's falling for their shit no more. So I'm glad MIT is standing up. This is wild. But even Schlorendern and his co-founder, Alice Gilman, can't seem to keep away from the topic. Just last September, the pair presented an Abundance Longevity, a $70,000 per ticket event in Boston, organized by the anti-aging promoter Peter Diamandis. Although the presentation to about 40 people was not recorded and meant to be confidential, a copy of the agenda for the event shows that Schlorendern was there to outline his final bid to defeat aging in a session called Full Body Replacement. According to a person who was there, both animal research and personal clones for spare organs were discussed. During the presentation, Gilman and Schlorendern even stood in front of an image of cloning needle. Pressed on whether this was a talk about brainless clones, Gilman told us that while R3's current business is replacing animal models, the team reserves the right to hold hypothetical future discussions. MIT Technology Review found no evidence that R3 has cloned anyone or even any animal bigger than a rodent. What we did find were documents, additional meeting agendas, and other sources outlining a technical roadmap for what R3 called body replacement cloning in a 2023 letter to supporters. That roadmap involved improvements to the cloning process and genetic wiring programs for how to create animals without complete brains. A main purpose of the fundraising, investors say, was to support efforts to try new techniques in monkeys from a base in the Caribbean that offered a path to a nearer term business plan for more ethical medical experiments and toxicology testing. If the company could develop what it now calls monkey organ sacs, however, this would work clearly on any human that they try. And they're not really wanting that known. Though he holds a PhD, Schlorendern is a biotech outsider who has published little and is best known for having once outfitted a do-it-yourself lab in his Bay Area garage. Still, his ties to the experimental fringe of longevity science have earned him a network in Silicon Valley and allies at a risk-taking U.S. Health Innovation Agency, ARPA-H. Together with its success at raising money from investors, this signals that the brainless clone concept could be taken seriously by a wider community of scientists, doctors, and ethicists, some who express grave concerns. It sounds crazy in my opinion, said Jose Ghibli, a researcher at Michigan State University. How do you demonstrate safety? 25 years ago, Ghibli was among the first scientists to try clone human embryos, but he was trying to obtain matched stem cells, not make a baby. There's no limit to human imagination and ways to make money, but there have to be boundaries, and this is the boundary that of making a human who is not a human being, a brainless human being. So he's gonna that for to repopulate and to clone brainless babies for money. That's sick. Since Dolly the sheep was born and cloned in 1996, researchers have cloned dogs, cats, camels, horses, cattle, ferrets, and other species of mammals. Injecting a cell from an existing animal into an egg creates a carbon copy embryo that can develop, although not always without problems, defects, deformities, and stillbirths. Those grave risks are why we never heard of a human clone. But brainless clones flips the script. That's because it's the ultimate aim is not to create a healthy person, but an unconscious body that would probably need life support, like a feeding tube, to stay alive. Because this would share the DNA of a person being copied, its organs would be a near perfect immunological match. Backers of this broad concept argue that a non sentient body would be ethically acceptable to harvest organs from. Some also believe that swapping in fresh young body parts, known as replacement, is the likeliest path to life extension, since so far no drug can reverse aging. And there's this idea of a complete body transplant. Certainly for Cyronic patients, that sounds something like really promising and straight out of a sci fi movie, says Anders Sandberg, a prominent Swedish transhumanist and expert in the ethics of future technology. He notes that many people who opt in to be stored in cryonic chambers after death choose the less expensive head only option. There might be a market for having an extra clone body. Oh my God. This is insane. According to the copy of the agenda, that 2023 session also included a presentation by a cloning expert, Young Yi Chun, and there was another from Gene Herbert, who was a professor at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine and is now a programmer manager at ARPA-H, where he oversees a project to use stem cells to restore damaged brain tissue. Herbert popularized the so-called replacement solution to avoid death in a 2020 book called Replacing Aging. In an interview prior to joining the government in 2024, Hebert described an informal but very collaborative relationship with Schloendern. The overall idea was to stop aging. One of them would determine how to repair a brain, while the other would figure out how to create a body without one. It's a perfect match, right? Body and brain. Schloendern, by working outside the mainstream, had the huge advantage of not being bound by getting the next paper out or the next grant. Herbert said, adding, "It's such a wonderful way of doing research. It's just clean and pure." R3 now appears on the ARPA H website on a list of prospective partners for Hebert's program. In a LinkedIn message exchange with Schloendern in the same year, he describes his work as feasibility research in body replacement. "We will try to do it in a way that produces defined social benefits early on, and we need to prepare to take no for an answer if it turns out that this cannot be done safely," Schloendern wrote at the time. He declined an interview then, saying that before exiting stealth mode, he wants to be sure the benefits are reasonably grounded in reality. This could prove challenging. While body part replacement sounds logical, like swapping on a timing belt of the old car, in reality, there's scant evidence that receiving organs from a younger twin would make you live any longer. A complete body transplant, meanwhile, would probably be fatal, at least with current techniques. In the latest test of the concept published last July, Russia surgeons removed a pig's head and then sewed it back on. The animal did live, breathing weakly and lapping water from a syringe, but because its spinal cord had been cut, it otherwise was totally paralyzed. As whoa. In an act of mercy, the doctors ended the pig's life after about 12 hours. Even some of the R3's investors say the endeavor was risky, with low odds on the project and on par with colonizing Mars. Boyan Wang, head of Immortal Dragons, has spoken on the longevity conferences about body swapping technology, referring to the chance that when the time comes, you can transplant your brain into a new body. These guys really do want to have human clones and transfer their bodies. But since making his investment, Wang says he's become less bullish and now views whole body transplant as very infeasible, not even scientific, and far away from hope of any realistic application. Still, he says the investment in R3 fits with his philosophy of making unorthodox bets that could be breakthroughs against aging. What can really move the needle, because time is running out? Well, clonal bodies sit at the extreme frontier of advancing cluster of technologies, all aimed at growing spare parts. Researchers are exploring stem cells, synthetic embryos, and blob-like organoids, and some companies are cloning genetically engineered pigs whose kidneys and hearts have already been transplanted into a few patients. Each of these methods seek to harness development, the process by which animal bodies naturally form in the womb to grow fully functional organs. There's even a growing cadre of mainstream scientists who say non-sentient bodies could solve the organ shortage if they could be grown through artificial means. Two Stanford University professors calling these structures bodyoids published an editorial in favor of manufacturing spare human bodies. Wow, man, like, why would people be for this? While that editorial left many details to the imagination, they called the idea at least plausible, but and possibly revolutionary. There are a lot of variations on where they are trying to find a socially acceptable form, says George Church, a Harvard University professor who advises startups in the field. But Church says gestating an entire body is probably taking things too far, since nearly all patients on transplant lists are waiting for just a single organ, like a heart or kidney. There's almost no scenario where you need a whole body. I just think if it's someday acceptable. It's not a good place to start. He has the right idea. So this guy's based. Yeah. If if people are having to like seek alternative methods in order to live longer, you fucked up from the whole way. Why are you trying that now? Like you should have worried about that from the get go and should have been focusing on it. um for the moment, Church says brainless human bodies are not very useful, in addition to being repulsive. That's arguably why body replacement technology still feels risky to talk about, even among life extension enthusiasts who are otherwise ready to inject Chinese peptides or have their bodies cryogenically frozen. I think it's exciting or interesting from a scientific perspective, but I think the world is not fully ready for it yet, says ML Candaziora, CEO of Tomorrow Bio, a company in Berlin that stores bodies at 196 degrees Celsius in the hope that they can be restored to life in the future. Everybody's like, yeah, cryopreservation makes total sense. And then you talk about total body replacement, and then everybody's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then you talk about uploading your soul into a computer for forever consciousness, and it's like even more whoa. And that's what these guys are doing. I can't believe them. Even so, replacement technology has found a fervent base of support among the group of self described hardcore longevity adherents who follow a philosophy called vitalism, which holds that society should redirect resources toward achieving unlimited lifespans. Fuck. The growing influence of this movement, achieved through lobbying, investment, recruiting, and public message, was detailed earlier this year in MIT Technology Review. Last spring, during a meetup for this community, Kendazora was among the attendees of an invite only replacement day gathering that took off the public schedule. It was where more radical ideas could be discussed freely, since to some in the vitalist cycle or circle, replacing body parts has emerged as the most plausible, least expensive way to beat death. At least there was the conclusion of a roadmap for anti aging technology produced by one vitalist group, the Longevity Biotech Fellowship, which reckoned that a proof of concept. Oh shit! I turned off my. I turned off my own. Um, sorry, I'm back. Which reckoned that a proof of concept human cloning lacking a neocortex would cost 40 million to create, a tiny amount relatively speaking. Its report cited the existence of stealth companies working on cloning while non sentient bodies, although it took out not to name them. If these companies' activities become public, there will be a huge backlash. People will hate it. What's up, Matthew? Matt W out there. There's a ton of dystopian movies and novels about this kind of stuff. That's why I don't talk about any of the companies working on it. They are trying to hide it from public attention. We have to have the angel investors and other people invest kind of in on the secret until things are ready. Borer did say he sees as the best way to go public first to slowly ease body replacement into society's awareness by disclosing more limited aims, which will be palatable. We're not going to start with let's clone you and give you a body. We're going to start with let's solve the organ shortage. Eventually people will warm up to it, and there we can go with the more hardcore stuff. In an interview earlier this month, Borer declined to name the companies involved in his immortality roadmap or to say if R3 is one of them, but we did identify one additional stealth startup. This one focused on replacing personal internal organs, not the whole body, called Kind Biotechnology in New Hampshire, a based company headed by the anti-aging researcher Justin Rebo, a sometime collaborator of Slorendern's. According to the patent technology filed by the company, Rebo's team is working to create animals with a complete lack of ability to feel, think, or sense the environment. Images include the patents show mice the company produced that lack a complete brain and others that don't have faces or limbs. They did this by deleting genes in embryos using CRISPR, the gene editing technology, with the goal of creating a sack of organs that grows mostly on its own with only a minimal nervous system. The cartoon rendered submitted to the patent office shows what it looks like: a fleshy duffel bag connected to life support tubes. That's horrible. In an email, Rebo said his company is working on ethical and scalable way to create animal organs for experimental transplant to humans. He notes that thousands die while waiting for an organ. Some of kind patent technologies do cover the possibility of producing these organ sacs from human cells. Rebo says that's more of a speculative possibility, but he does see his work as part of a replacement approach to longevity. Firstly, that's because a scalable production of young, high quality organs would let surgeons transplant in more types of patients, including many with heart disease in an old age where candidates you know have to wait like and they aren't old people aren't even candidates for transplants. With abundant high quality organs, replacement could become a direct form of rejuvenation by replacement of failing parts. And Rebo imagines that simultaneously replacing multiple internal organs grown together in a sac could have an even broader rejuvenating effects. Ultimately, replacing failing parts is a direct path of extending healthy human lifespan. Church, who agreed earlier to this kind bio, sees this work as part of an effort to nudge these technologies towards something that is more useful and more acceptable from the get-go. And then let's see how society responds to that rather than jumping to the most repulsive and most useless form, which seems to be what everybody is aiming for. People who know Schloendern describe a dynamo-like presence who is 100% dedicated to the goal of extreme life extension. In 2006, he penned a paper in Bioethics journal outlining why the desire to live forever is rational and why his doctoral research at the University of Arizona was sponsored by a longevity research organization called the SANS Foundation. He also is well connected. In an interview, Aubrey de Grey, who is the influential and controversial fundraiser and prognosticator who co-founded SANS, called Schloendern one of my proteges. And around 2010, Peter Thiel reportedly invested 1.5 million in Immunopath, a company started by Schloendern to develop stem cell treatments, though it soon failed. By 2021, Schloendern had moved on, founding R3 Technologies. He began to circulate the body replacement idea and discuss a step-by-step scheme to get there, accessing techniques in the lab first, then in monkeys, and maybe eventually in humans. In a 2023 letter to stakeholders signed by Schloendern begins by saying that body replacement cloning will require multiple component genetic engineering on a scale that has never been attempted in primates. Fortunately, as molecular techniques for brain knockout are well known in mice and should be expected to function in birthing whole primates. Would it work? There's only one way to find out, the letter says. Wang, the investor at Immortal Dragons, says he put money into R3, and after it showed him it is possible to create mice without complete brains. There were imperfections, but the resulting mice survived, grew up, and to me, that is a pretty strong experiment. Man, wow, these guys are absolutely sick in the brain, man. They're growing like bodiless or organless and brainless animals, and they think it's cool. Oh, the bigger technical obstacle, though, remains the cloning. Out of the 100 attempts to clone an animal, only a few typically survived. That fact alone makes cloning a human or monkey almost infeasible. Wow. But R3 does seem to have made the effort to tackle the efficiency problem. In one document reviewed by MIT, it claims to have implemented improvements to the basic procedure in rodents, referencing a protein called hyoscine demethylase that helps erase a cell's genetic memory, adding it can greatly increase the chance that the cell will form a cloned embryo after being injected into an egg in the lab. Those molecules were first used in a successful cloning of a monkey in 2018, and it wasn't that easy. In fact, it was huge and costly effort to handle a crowd of monkeys in estrus and performing IVF on them. According to the Michigan's State Gabelli's, monkey cloning remains nearly impossible and unaffordable. The R3 document refers to birthing fix it developed to further improve the cloning success rate. The company may have also tried to tackle a second long-standing obstacle, defect in how a placenta works. Whoa. So they're trying to look into placentas and defects and oh my god, this is an insane read that like you guys should go look at this. There's a lot for this. And quite frankly, I'm not going to because it's about the same where these guys are trying to justify. So MIT isn't justifying. They don't like it, right? But they're trying to justify murder. It's non-sentient, so it's not murder. It's not a homicide. It's for medical research. I personally hate that type of shit. That's like the Epstein class type of stuff. You know, they're just trying to justify their murders. We're almost done here. Man, I took off my hat because that read was ridiculously long. A Mexican gold miner trapped 300 meters underground for 2 weeks has been found alive. So here he is.
¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal? Ejército Mexicano, Batallón de Atención a Emergencias. ¿Cómo te llamas? Muy bien, Zapata. Venimos a tu ayuda. Muy bien, Zapata. ¿Todo va a estar bien? Te vamos a sacar de aquí. ¿Tienes fe? ¿Tienes fe? Aquí estamos. ¿Está bien? Sí. Muy bien. Tranquilo.
I think it's amazing that he kept faith and he was peaceful. He wasn't tripping out, and he was obviously in some deep water. So it was, could have been very healing for him too. Was in there for 2 weeks, so probably found God and probably found a whole bunch of revelations in his mind. Man, we're gonna play one of these videos right here.
No. He's buying an island of ice while the world is on fire. A billionaire liar, a professional prior. He tweets in the morning, NATO is useless, while leaving the youth in the street feeling rootless. Automatic draft, yeah, the art of the steal. Trading your life for a classified deal. Vietnam buys, but the reason is trash. Protecting the files while he's burning the cash. Facts. The jungle's dead. Blood on the floor. The jungle's dead. Why are we going to war? The jungle's dead. Secrets in the file. The jungle's dead. Killing with a smile. The jungle's dead. The jungle's dead. The jungle's dead. The jungle's dead. 100 strikes, 10 minutes, it's insane. 50 buildings down, washing blood in the rain. They call it strategy, I call it a joke. 100 families vanishing in smoke. You call it the law, no, it's jungle survival. Killing the innocent for a political rival. Sky News is laughing, your own people hate you. When even the news starts to underestimate you. Killer. The straight is a chokehold, the vows are rule closed. The weakness of Washington is finally exposed. $98 and the price keeps on creeping, while the mothers of the drafted are bitterly weeping. You're thirsty for helium, you're thirsty for gas, but you're stuck in a war that is kicking your ass. It's the law of the jungle where the strong eat the small, but even the giant is bound to fall. Crash! Crash. Yes, I'ma warn you, the exit is gone. You're trapped in the darkness before the dawn. 1 out of 7, your own party is turning, while the bridges to Tehran are steadily burning. Woo! You're buying the ice to cool down the shame, but the Epstein files have your middle name. Automatic enrollment, automatic grave. Is this the freedom? that you promised the brave. Tucker was shouting, get the weed from the Zion, but you're tied to the beast and you're feeding the lion. 50 towers, 100 explosions, building an empire on bloody erosions. You're the king of the jungle, but the trees are all bare. There's no loyalty left, and there's no one to care. The jungle's death is a heavy amount, and the blood of the children is the only count. The jungle's dead, blood on the floor. The jungle's dead. Why are we going to war? The jungle's dead. Secrets in the file. The jungle's dead. Killing with a smile. The jungle's dead. Blood on the floor. The jungle's dead. Why are we going to war? The jungle's dead. Secrets in the file. The jungle's dead. Killing with a smile. $98, 50 buildings, 100 strikes, and 0 ways out. But sir, what about Greenland? Forget it. The ice is melting anyway. The jungle's dead.
Man, a lot of people said it. Trump only got into office to save himself from the Epstein files and to save his buddies, but it's not working. And, well, Trump just ordered the dismantling of the U.S. Forest Service, all 10 regional offices shut down, 52 research labs shut down, and 193 million acres of public land now not occupied or protected. I don't know. Horrible. You might ask why. Well,
as an asset manager, you know, BlackRock being able to unlock and take control of as many natural assets as possible that aren't currently part of the financial system is obviously a way for them to perpetuate what they do and deepen and expand their control over not just you know, people in the existing financial system, but really over the natural world as well, and essentially turn everything alive into a tradable Wall Street financial product. It seems like in Larry Fink's case in particular, there's a goal, well, a big ambition there to develop new asset classes that can be used to basically fuel their existing business model and perpetuate it for, like, I don't know, millennia forward. So one of these that you know, I've been writing about for a few years is the whole idea of natural assets, what they call nature's economy. Natural assets as possible that aren't currently part of the financial system is obviously a way for them to perpetuate what they do and deepen and expand their control over not just you know, people in the existing financial system, but really over the natural world as well, and essentially turn everything alive into a tradable Wall Street financial product. And the goal, as Fink has stated, is to have all of this on a universal ledger, on blockchain, presumably, and have it be, you know, trackable and surveillable. By having it all surveillable and you know, automated in a sense, you know, he's able to have his risk management AI thing, you know, Aladdin, you know, sort of exercise control over it in unprecedented ways, I think, for their benefit. And then, of course, a lot of what's happening now as we're moving into this new financial governance system is the push to change all of the infrastructure towards this, you know, quote unquote green model, I guess, or decarbonization, right? Part of the goal of the whole global carbon market thing for them is that it allows them to unlock so many new assets and so much more collateral and so much other stuff to create new debt out of, and to just sort of expand the existing models they use to just unprecedented levels. And sort of perpetuate this into infinity. One of the things too about the natural asset thing, at least as far as the natural asset corporation model is concerned, is that you literally just go into a forest or you go to a river or lake and you identify the natural asset, and then at no cost to you, just after identifying it, you issue shares in the natural asset, a lake, a forest, whatever, and then you sell those shares. I mean, it's literally just pointing out something outside and being like, this is mine, I'm going to fractionalize it and sell it to people, and you're producing money in like, out of thin air, essentially. And you're able to do that. I mean, the natural world is vast and huge, and they're doing this, they're financializing it all, as framing it as the only way to save the planet. But really, it's the only way for them to save their insane.
Oh. Shit.
Your brain and your people reach out to us. Yeah, we got the DMs here. If one nation's gonna stand against the Epstein regime's fear, it's us till the last breath. We've been doing it for years. We're standing here for everyone your system ever wronged. They've known all along the enemy was always you. The real threat wore a suit and sung a patriotic song while selling their own citizens and calling it strong. Stealing from your own people, making them bleed, taking tax dollars just to fund your own greed. They waking up to the lies, the illusions of burst. You screamed America first, nah, you put losers first. Make Israel great again. Your government is run by pedophiles. They ordered you to die for Israel. They ordered you to die for Israel. They lied to you all. We saw everything. If the public ever saw the files, man, the planet would shake from the level of filth and the crimes in your wake. No wonder Jeff called you the worst, you degenerate snake. You claimed you never set foot. You went 40 plus times. You sick bastard, you cook. We stepping up to the plate. Epstein regime gotta fall. You fake Christian elite sacrificing the ball. Demon, you talk real big for a man with tiny hands. Tiny hands, tiny things, tiny everything. We saw everything, and word got out. The smallness kinda expands. No wonder all those rage tweets, all those desperate rants. Overcompensating bully, always causing a scene. You said you love losers. Well, look at your team. Your government is run by. Your government is run by pedophiles. They ordered you to die for Israel. They ordered you to die for Israel. They lied to you all.
Yo, and with that, guys, you guys can keep on checking out. There's so much Lego raps coming out right now, man. I'm gonna head out to bed. You guys have a wonderful night. This was a great podcast. See you guys next time on the 509 Divine Pines podcast. Peace. Love y'all. Be blessed. Be high.